Welcome everyone to the Racist War and Everything, episode 251, coming to you on a Tuesday evening, and you're joined by myself, Fenian, and I've got Nolsey,
Hello.
and I've got Bob today.
Hello.
So, welcome fellas. Hope you're having a pleasant week thus far, and as we've done for the past few episodes, we're going to start off our conversation on Israel and Gaza today. So, obviously, the big story is that Australia is planning to formally recognise a state of Palestine at the next United Nations General Assembly, which will take place in around about a month's time in New York. With the condition, though, that Hamas play no role in its future governance. So, this is really what they had been saying before. Australia always said that we would recognise a Palestinian state under the conditions that Hamas would play no role in its governance, but also that the hostages be released. Now they're basically saying, well, look, we will recognise it, but we just have the preference that Hamas have no role in it. And, well, look, while you could argue that that is some kind of greater ideal, I would simply just point to the example of the Taliban in Afghanistan and say, well, you spent about 20 years trying to flush them out. The biggest empire in the world occupied them during that time, them and all their allies, including Australia. And after 20 years, once he left, they took power again. Why would Gaza be any different? I mean, do you guys see it any other way?
No, I mean, you got a native political power. That's the problem you're going to run into with trying to exclude Hamas. I mean, they even, there was the Palestinian Authority. It was basically like a kosher set up political party that was meant to like be the government of Palestine that wasn't Hamas. And then they let it roll for a little bit, and then surprise, surprise, they have all these Hamas infiltrators in it, and it's functionally just another mouthpiece for Hamas. The same's going to happen here. There's no way you can square the circle where Hamas, or at least the ideology, because the ideology of Hamas is just like a Islamist Palestinian. What's it called again? Interests. Like Hamas is basically just Palestinian interests when you boil it down.
Well, they won the election. I mean,
yes.
The reason why they don't have proper elections in the West Bank is because Hamas would win those too. We were told all this time by like George W. Bush that we just needed free and fair elections in Palestine, and the rest would sort of sort itself out. Well, when they did that, they voted in Hamas, and it wasn't by a small margin either. It was over 70%. And, there is an element of truth when the Israelis say that, like, basically wherever they fire their missiles, Hamas is there, and they use the human shields excuse. But there's a little bit of truth to it in that, like, basically when you fire at pretty much any civilian in the Gaza Strip, they're probably connected to Hamas in some way, even if that is simply through support, because they just have majority support in Gaza. It's as simple as that. So they can't do it. So we're basically going to recognize them in the hope that Hamas goes away, even though that's not going to happen. And I guess we're sort of putting our faith in the Palestinian Authority, which is run by Mahmoud Abbas, who I think is from the Fatah party, which was like Yasser Arafat's old party. But look, if we're going to say one little white pill on that, Mahmoud Abbas is basically accused of being a Holocaust denier. Like his PhD thesis, he actually said in there that like no more than a few 100,000 Jews died during the so-called Holocaust.
I don't know. The PhD? God, that's authority. I should listen to that.
So
At least one paper's been written on it.
yeah, there's many. But Holocaust denial is a huge thing in the Middle East, and like the Quran is obviously the biggest selling book in the Middle East, but number two is Mein Kampf. So it tells you something.
It's like I love that there's a homegrown industry of printing Mein Kampf in Arabic. And it's the two fucking IDF soldiers holding up a copy of Mein Kampf in Arabic.
Now look, it was only a little while ago that Albanese did not quite go as far as Britain, France, and Canada, talking about formal recognition at the UN General Assembly, so long as Israel did not take steps to stabilize the situation in Gaza. So what spurred Albanese on to go that step further and say, no, we will do it, is this new plan by the Israelis. So what they're saying here is that they want to have a total occupation of Gaza, and apparently that way they can actually root out Hamas completely. And then they say that they would hand over the governance of Gaza to some kind of Arab authority. They haven't specified what. I don't know if that means they would leave Egypt in charge of it or something like that. I'm really not sure. But one thing they're very intent on is not giving Hamas any say in it whatsoever. So that obviously does not meet the conditions of stabilizing the situation in Gaza. You would obviously just make things worse. So for that reason, you do have these Western powers, including Australia now, who says, well, look, we need to recognize the state of Palestine now, because if we wait, there may not actually be a Palestine left to recognize. That was how Penny Wong worded it anyway. But yeah, she was right. Because, if you want to be really picky about this, people will say, well, look, how could you recognize a state that doesn't actually exist? So
yeah,
I'll just read out. This is like the official definition of what is a state, where you've got a permanent population, a defined territory, an effective government, and the capacity to enter into international relations. So, I guess
that's
they've
not
got
fucking happening anytime soon.
Well, you see, number three, an effective government. When neighboring power blows the shit out of 75% of your infrastructure, or maybe more, obviously you can't have an effective government that is conducting international relations.
It'll be incredibly dangerous to gather all of your proposed government officials in one location.
Right. So the point is, the reason why there isn't a state is precisely because Israel makes it so. So in the absence of that, we have to basically say, well, look, you're not allowing them to be a state. So we have to
control services in Gaza. They control the electricity. The electricity is generated outside of Gaza, mind you. Just remember that.
Well, yeah,
I believe water. I believe water is either desalinated or pumped from outside of Gaza into Gaza too. So
if that's still fucking happening.
Yeah. Oh yeah. If that's happening, you want to look at some them controlling a government in that way.
Yeah. So look,
really elected one, mind you.
Tony Burke, who is the Immigration and Home Affairs Minister, he said, well, look, we recognized an Iraqi state back when ISIS controlled large parts of it. Or you could even say the same for Syria as well, back when ISIS controlled, just about half of Syria or so. But the ECAJ has hit back and said, well, okay, but there was an Iraqi state before the ISIS occupation, and there was a Syrian state before the ISIS occupation. With Palestine, there's just never been a state.
Oh my god.
This
Oh
is a
my
very
fucking god.
claim. They say that there's never ever been such thing as a state of Palestine, whereas I think what they claim is that there have been 3 states of Israel, and the one we're on right now is the third one.
I don't think there's ever been formally a state of Israel, except for this one, maybe.
Well, that's the thing. Obviously, a lot of nations don't actually recognize the state of Israel. Basically, all non-Western countries don't recognize it.
Well, yeah, no. Again, like I remember the country balls thing when that was a huge little internet meme. Israel was the only country ball that wasn't a ball; it was a cube.
Yeah. So look, I saw Richard Marles being interviewed on Insiders on Sunday. Unfortunately, we seem to still be providing them with like fabricated materials that end up getting used in their armed forces.
Yeah.
He kept repeating the line that we don't supply arms to Israel. And it's like, yeah, okay, that's technically true. Like, we don't give them any bombs or guns or anything. But that doesn't mean we don't supply the military in some form. So what I'm hoping from this is that the kind of tepid indirect support that a lot of Western countries give Israel will actually dry up, because we're going to have to say, well, look, we recognize the state now, so therefore it is a sovereign state being occupied by a foreign power that is effectively implementing genocide and starvation as a weapon of war. So we're going to have to actually sanction you.
Yeah, there we go.
And I can see that happening. I can see Western countries, maybe not Australia, but a lot of European countries like France, like Germany, actually saying, no, we're going to sanction Israel so long as the situation in Gaza continues.
Did you see the post by the AJA threatening the Australian government with like ominously?
Yes.
I might have, but like what I've been reading, the main threat that I've been reading from like the Jewish lobby concerning Australia specifically is that they're going to stop sharing intelligence with us. So there were at least 2 articles in the Australian that detailed what was apparently all these terror plots that were going to happen in Australia. But because of the brilliance of Mossad, they were able to prevent them. And they claim that they've actually saved hundreds of Australian lives. And basically, if we go and recognize Palestine, they're going to stop sharing that kind of intelligence with us.
Lol. Can you also stop threatening our prime ministers?
But what did that other group? Well, what did you say they were threatening?
Oh, the AJA said like this isn't the 1930s or 40s anymore. You don't fuck with Jews, and then at Parliament.
Yeah, but look, things are moving really quickly in terms of attitudes towards Israel. I was just talking to a friend yesterday about. Please forgive me for watching this, but I don't know if you guys keep tabs on Candace Owens at all.
My favorite negress.
So I recently found out that she's got this theory that Brigitte Macron, the First Lady of France, was actually a poor man.
Yes.
And she's got a series called Becoming Brigitte.
2 queens fighting.
Yeah. But a couple of days ago, she actually had an interview with Milo Yiannopoulos,
Oh,
yes,
God.
he's still out. He is not all that relevant nowadays. But when they were discussing Israel, not only was he describing what's going on in Gaza as a genocide, but he was actually calling for the peaceful dissolution of the state of Israel. And he said that it should become a province again of the British Empire. That's what he was proposing
The fuck?
for Israel. Now, remember, this is a guy who, not all that long ago, was a pretty mainstream conservative voice, even if he was a bit more outlandish and flamboyant
Gay.
or whatever. And gay as well, yes. Now he claims
And
to
the
have
other
left
one.
a lot
Possibly
behind.
Jewish.
Well, he now denies that.
Yeah. He says he's just
because-
Greek now or something.
Well, he always said that he was Greek and Irish too, by the way. He's got a bit of Irish in him. But he said that his mother claimed she was Jewish, and now he's saying, oh no, his mum was actually lying to him, and so he's not Jewish. I don't know.
If I got my hands on Milo Yiannopoulos, I would have an executive outcome waiting for him.
Yeah, but look, but the point I'm making is that now you've got these conservatives who, maybe they kind of represent a younger conservative crowd, like they're more representative of millennials and Gen Z. But that specific type of conservative, maybe you could even just call them America Firsters, they're more kind of aligned to the Groypers, or Nick Fuentes and that kind of thing. Whatever you think about them, they're anti-Israel. Okay, we probably disagree with them on most other things. But the point is, they are a fairly large faction of today's conservatism that is anti-Israel. And that, like a couple of years ago, would have just been unthinkable. But things have moved very, very quickly, which is why I think that, we could actually very soon see Western powers, not America, but other Western powers, sanctioning Israel. Like doing the same thing to them as what we did to the South Africans over apartheid. I can see that as a very real possibility in the near future.
To be honest, it's also what we did to Rhodesia, because to make that sanction effective, you would have to bar them from arms, at least from US arms.
Yeah. So, I mean, unfortunately, you won't kind of get major change unless you can get the Americans to finally abandon their suicidal support of that shitty little country. But considering that you have this new breed of conservatives, like up and coming, who are anti-Israel, who are anti-Zionist, and who are anti-Jewish lobby, if not just outright anti-Jewish, well, I don't think you can guarantee a future for that kind of American support for Israel. They may well be on borrowed time.
Yeah. I mean, they've lost control of the narrative internationally. I don't think you can find a group that isn't just basically Jews or paid explicitly by Jews that is pro-Israel.
Now, look, in terms of the Australian conservative response, it's been mixed. Like, Andrew Hastie was there saying that, like, he doesn't like the fact that Israel is not telling us what the end game is. How does this actually end? So a lot of people who may have been supportive of hitting back at Hamas after October 7, they're saying, well, look, it's been almost 2 years now, and we can't really see what it is you're doing there, apart from killing a whole bunch of people. Like, how does this end? Do we just keep doing that again and again, just repeat killing people and starving people and shooting at aid trucks and people lining up for aid? Is that what we're just going to do for the next few years?
The open secret is that these areas of contention are just end up being settled 100% Jewish. That's the open secret win condition for Israel. And they're already fucking bridging into both Syria and Lebanon with IDF forces. So we know what's next on the fucking horizon after that.
Yeah, but even the neocon right don't support that. I mean, yeah, you're
Yeah.
right. Like that's sort of like what they're edging towards. But if that was given as an end game, an end proposal to Andrew Hastie, he would say, no, I don't support that. So even the neocons are getting a bit impatient,
Hasty.
let's say. Then again, though, you did have, like, say, Michaelia Cash, who said that recognizing a Palestinian state is rewarding Hamas because this is apparently, just what Hamas wanted the whole time. Um, I don't think so. I think they just want the expulsion of Jews from Palestine. I think that's their end game. But let's go. Let me just read very briefly from a statement from Pauline Hanson, just to show you how she is ever disappointing us all. All
Yep.
states must pledge to guarantee the security of Israel, and the occupied territories must be completely cleansed of any terrorist influence or presence before Australia can recognise a Palestinian state. One Nation leader, Senator Pauline Hanson, said One Nation would not support the Albanese Labor government's surrender to terrorist extremism in its plan to recognise a Palestinian state. So we can see there that, like, the real neoconservative reaction to this is actually coming from One Nation rather than from the Liberal Party. So, One Nation are really just reflective of, like, those populist right European parties, like, Geert Wilders' Party for Freedom,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Even though that's sort of like out of fashion now, Pauline Hanson has just sort of caught up to it.
I also saw a post from Katter's Australian Party. I think the helm of that is Robbie Katter at the moment.
Yeah.
And
they're behind us.
they also I don't know, I think a couple hours ago now, issued a statement saying similar things that One Nation has.
Yep. I didn't
So-
see that, but that doesn't surprise me at all. Bob Katter's son, he was a massive Zionist.
Mm.
In fact, he turned up to, like, Gaza protests with his own, like, counter protest placards saying things like "Free Gaza from Hamas." I think he had one that said that.
Oh, that's a popular one.
Yeah. I think Tommy Robinson has used that one too.
Yeah. Did he also have one saying "I'm gay"?
Oh God! So
I think you get more political action with that one.
So just on
just more action in general.
On the big protests that they had in Sydney last week, there was a private members' bill introduced into the New South Wales Parliament to bill the protesters to make them pay for, like, the cost of police and emergency services and, the economic drain that would have been on the Sydney CBD as a result. That was killed off. But they do actually make the point that, like, surely there's some bearing of responsibility for the cost when it comes to holding these big marches. You can't expect, say, to do it every year. So, I definitely, I'm supportive of marches and everything. It's how you make your point publicly. But I remember when they had them for, well, speaking of Milo Yiannopoulos, do you remember they actually tried to get Milo Yiannopoulos and his entourage to pay for it all?
God, wasn't it like
He refused.
it was like $20,000, wasn't it? I'm just trying to remember.
I think it was more than that, but it was the police. The police actually sent them that. And everyone was like, well, hold on. But they're not the ones who caused the trouble, though. It was like the demonstrators who came after them. They were the ones that caused the police presence because they were the ones who were violent and damaging property.
Yes,
People
but
he went to go and
our
speak, by the
government
way.
doesn't acknowledge that.
Hmm.
Well, that was back in the day when Antifa didn't exist. They were totally a thing, but they didn't exist. Like the state basically refused to believe that there were organized anarchist militia groups. Which is funny because, like, literally, when I was at that fucking Socialist Party launch, there was a group of dudes showed up in German surplus jackets with anti-fascist patches, set up like a paramilitary uniform.
Right. So
I had like a
look,
foot on all of them, but
what's going to be interesting, and this is a perfect opportunity to shield the protest that's due to occur on the 31st of this month on a Sunday across the whole country. So every capital city except for Darwin and Hobart, I believe. So this is a march for Australia. It's a march against mass immigration, if you haven't heard of it. I would basically not worry about the question of who is organizing this, who is running this, who is going to be there. Just turn up. All right. That's all we need. We need lots of numbers. Turn up with an Australian flag, with a Eureka flag, whatever you want. And if they can get 100,000
showing
people.
up with my trans flag.
If they can get
I was going
100,000
to show up with a Palestine flag. Am I a bit late?
Look, they said they don't want like Palestine flags or Israeli flags or
Shit.
They said no foreign flags at all. They said whatever version of the Australian flag you want, bring that, but it's got to be an Australian one. So
can we go drinking afterwards?
I'd say so. That's usually what you do, isn't it? I mean, it's from
what about drinking before?
No,
we're not having a.
No, don't do that.
We're not having a riot juice situation.
Oh.
Yeah, no, but they're making it out as if like I don't know if you guys saw this stuff. They were like telling African Australians to stay home and stay safe. They're like, you're not going to be safe while this protest is on. Like, fucking hell, what are we going to do?
Yeah, I saw a TikTok of that.
I got the rope right here. No, yeah, I don't. That's just like the social paranoia thing that they all do, being like, oh my god, we're such a targeted group, and then an NGO will turn around like so many years down the line, and it's like, well, look at what they had to do during the time. And then some fucking homosexual academic writes in a dissertation later, and then it's just taken as whole fact that there was like lynch squads going around.
Yeah, but it's going to be interesting how they react to this. Like, will police try to have it shut down? Will they be denied a permit? It's only it's still 3 weeks away, so they could be trying a lot of things to get this stopped. But of course, it would look kind of bad just simply from the optics of a free speech perspective to shut down a rally so soon after you had this massive, massive march in Sydney. And, it'll look like the government or the police is just playing favourites. We'll have a protest for you guys, but not for these guys who support a stop to mass migration. So I think it'll still go ahead, but they're gonna pull out the stops to at least discourage it. And but what we can be absolutely sure of is that there's going to be counter demonstrators. So this could turn into kind of like our Charlottesville, although on a national level. But, turn up prepared to finish a fight, but don't start one. I probably don't need to tell people that.
But I don't wanna.
All right, anyway. And I hope Cole Davis doesn't turn up. You idiot. Just, stay home. Everyone just ignore that cunt, all right? If you see him,
turn around.
Yeah, just
I'm not even going to say the meme. I'm not even going to say the 360 degrees and walk away. turn 180 degrees and walk in the opposite direction.
If he
You know
served
those
any
Slim
kind of
Jim ads where like
It's
the
over.
Slim Jim character charges the screen screaming?
No.
Well, that's basically like me going to greet Cole Davis. The Slim Jim
Oh.
charging, screaming.
I was gonna say,
I'm a
didn't we
huge
have
fan of his work.
the Donskis? Isn't that what we had over here?
Well, whatever the fuck, man.
Okay, so let's turn to foreign affairs. So you might have missed it, but Albanese was in New Zealand recently. Their prime minister is Christopher Luxon. He was the guy who took over after Jacinda Ardern. And by the way, there's actually theories that Jacinda Ardern was born a man as well. I have a lot more trouble believing that one, considering
Yeah.
she was actually pregnant during her time as prime minister. So, yeah, I kind of doubt that one.
Hey, look, don't let a good A-log get in the way of some facts.
So, New Zealand is another Western power who is set to also recognise Palestine at the next General Assembly. They also discussed the tariffs because New Zealand has not been exempt. I believe they've got like a baseline 10% tariff as well on us. On New Zealand. And another thing the New Zealanders don't like is that we keep deporting Maoris back to New Zealand and Islanders. So they really don't like this. And I mean, in some ways, I can kind of understand it because a lot of the time you've got, say, like some Maori who came here when he was 1 year old and then, commits a crime when he's 21 and then they try to send him back. And they're like, well, look, he's Australia's responsibility. He grew up there. No. I mean, for starters, he has no place in Australia. He should have never have come here in the first place. That's the most important thing. But also, I mean, they can do it to us as well. Not that they would have very many Aborigines moving to New Zealand.
At that point, like, if you're committing a crime that sort of allows you to get deported, wouldn't you sort of go, oh, well, I guess, yeah, he's got citizenship here, or he's I know he's not naturalized here, but fuck, he's still our responsibility.
Well, that's one of the things we had a court case about this, and we covered it at the time, where a functionally New Zealand criminal was basically forced to not be deported because he was in some part indigenous.
Oh yeah, that was
Oh.
Yeah, I think he was from Papua New Guinea actually.
Oh yeah, sorry, Papua New Guinea. Maybe we need a similar thing with New Zealand. Like you have to take these people because they are some part native. Cough cough. Maoris aren't native New Zealand.
Right. Yeah, Maoris are like they're sort of Asian, aren't they? And they broke away.
Mm.
They're kind of like de-evolved Asians.
Well, that's just Polynesians in general.
Yes.
Asians, if you trap them on islands and had them like rape, murder, and eat each other for thousands of years.
Now, another thing that they discussed was defence spending. So, New Zealand has vowed to boost their spend on defence by around 2% of GDP within 8 years, while ours is forecast to be 2.33%. Now, according to the United States, they want allied countries like Australia and New Zealand to actually spend 3.5% of GDP on their military. Trump has been saying that too many American allies have been free riding a lot of the time. It's like when he starts saying that, like, Ukraine has got to start paying for all the arms that they give them. They're doing a similar thing with us. But, I would actually rather we increased our defense spending if that meant we could get rid of some of the American occupation that we have in Australia. Talking about that Richard Marles interview again that was on Insiders, he actually said that there is no such thing as American bases in Australia. He said that. Like, what? And he just said, oh, no, we have a presence of American troops in Australia, but they're not bases. Like, fuck off.
Yeah, I'm translucent blue. Fucking
ridiculous. We got a CIA base in the middle of the fucking country.
What's it called? Long Pine or
Pine
something?
Gap.
Pine Gap, that's the one.
And occasionally they blow the heads off of Aboriginals that go too close to it.
I mean, look, our historically we've had some, defense blusters, as such as starting the whole thing of Julian Assange existing, but I mean, if we spend money for defense, we already have a great homegrown industry in other fields. It's not hard to actually put some investment and time into furthering homegrown defense, especially now where we are very self-sufficient already.
Well, at least we used to be. I'll say that. When it comes to defense and like if we were actually going to increase defense spending, how would we do it? We'll just be buying arms from the States. That's about it.
I guess we're supposed to be manufacturing our own nuclear-powered submarines, but yeah, if we're ever going to acquire them, they're going to have to be basically just bought from America.
Again, like we talked about this for what was it, fucking 2 years straight, Finian? Like this would just pop up all the fucking time, and then we'll be like, yeah, we're not doing that. We've literally nuked our internal industries for the production of such equipment, and then we went and like fucking fucked over a French contractor who was completely and utterly capable of supplying what we asked, and then said like, oh no, we're going to go and create them again. So we went back to creating our own again, apparently, and then it basically functionally got scrapped because of the AUKUS agreement in America saying they were going to give us Polaris subs. And I remember being inside a Polaris sub docked up at a military museum in New York because they are that fucking old.
Yeah. I remember Sky News loved it, though, because Australia screwed over France in favor of America. So, that's a bloody conservative's wet dream right there. Double whammy. Fuck over the French, who they absolutely hate, and have generous contracts for our Yankee friends. Now, the other story we've got on foreign affairs is that, well, isn't this exciting? We've got a new multi-million-dollar deal with Vanuatu. Okay, so what does this actually involve? So this is worth $500 million. Look, this isn't really any kind of like reciprocal exchange going on here. This is just a bunch of aid money that we're dumping on Vanuatu. So this is to cover climate resilience, economic development and infrastructure. And also, they're not giving us the details on travel and visa arrangements that are all part of this agreement. So we've covered many times that with these Pacific Island nations, we dump a whole bunch of climate aid on them because, we're told that like in the next few weeks, sea levels will rise to the extent where all these people are just going to be drowned. So apparently we give them money for climate resilience, things like building dikes, actual dikes to keep water out. They never actually spend it on things like that, though. but that's apparently what it's there for. And then we allow a whole bunch of them to get work visas to come over and pick fruit in Australia. And this is just another
yes.
one.
The brown slaves.
Wait, so what do we get again?
Nothing.
Oh,
Basically, the under the table agreement here, and Finny and I have like harped on this a whole bunch, is that basically it's just bribe money so they don't install a Chinese base on their islands.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's like,
so
please
it's like,
don't side with China money.
That also. I mean, look, there's a point where, we could give them 500 million, let's say, and then China could come around and go, look, we'll give you 501 million.
That
And-
happened.
And what's
well,
more
that's
money?
what happened in the Solomon
Look,
Islands.
Yes.
China beat
yes.
us in the Solomon Islands. They cut a better deal with them than we were able to.
I'm assuming it was significantly more in that.
Oh yeah,
in
it
that
was.
case.
It was like
But-
it was like
but
tens of millions
I'm-
of dollars more. Yeah.
I'm just saying it can happen in the point of like one of those deals just to one up someone, like the small increment of money, and when that happens, it's ultimately worse because now you've been pushed out of influence with essentially the same amount of money, and now they've got double the money because they've just scammed you.
Yeah, well, they do very similar deals with America, but the reason why they do those ones is so that at the UN General Assembly, they vote against the resolutions condemning Israel.
Yep.
Yes.
It's funny. It's very interesting to, like, I encourage people to go and read the votes, like which countries, how they voted. When it comes to condemning Israel, basically every single country will sign that resolution, except for America, Australia, and all these Pacific Island nations who have just been bribed. This time around, though, Australia won't be on the list. So, like I was saying, things are changing in that regard. Okay. So, let's move on to the economy. And Albanese is kind of shutting down talk about any form of major tax reform taking place. I think last week we covered how both the business lobby and the trade union movement are calling for a raft of changes. Of course, their proposals are different from each other's, but both camps want like some pretty big reforms to happen. And this is because we just had the Productivity Commission issued a report citing many things about the economy, but one thing that was undeniable is that productivity has stalled in Australia in recent years. Commenters kind of differ on what exactly is causing it. One of the things the Productivity Commission named was the rise of the care economy. In other words, people who get employed as things like babysitters and childcare workers. In other words, unproductive jobs where you just get paid to mind someone, but you're not actually, creating anything.
You're not generating any value here.
Right.
Well, the large NDIS sector that.
The Filipino woman economy, or just the Filipino economy in general.
Yeah. So look, if you look at like the union lobby and also like various welfare groups, they're all calling on changes to negative gearing again and also capital gains tax. So remember, this was actually something that, you could arguably say lost Labor the 2019 election. They ended up just wanting to change franking credits, but there was earlier talk of changes to negative gearing, which, boomers in their multiple properties, they don't like the sound of that. And again, boomers with a pretty wide-ranging share portfolio don't like the idea of increased taxes on capital gains. Welfare groups, unions, they're all in favor of it. But I've said before that because there's more property owners in Australia than there are renters, although that is obviously changing very, very quickly. At least for the time being, the property owning boomer is a vote that they don't want to lose. And that's for
No.
both major parties. They don't want to lose those voters. So I can't see any real change happening in negative gearing. I just don't see it happening.
I don't know how this will play out, but I personally have seen. I shouldn't say personally. Well, no, actually, yeah. What it is, yeah, yeah. I have seen a large amount of, let's just say, investment properties being offloaded onto the market. These are obviously not the, like your starter home and your townhouse, your apartment on the second floor, the things that aren't really the most desirable for a first home buyer or someone who's going to live into it. But for someone that's an investor, these houses and these properties are quite lucrative because they're cheap and they can still offer a similar rental income as something in the same area that's desirable. And a lot of these have been hitting the market, or what real estate agents have been doing, and I'm pretty certain on this, is they have been withholding stock until other properties sell before putting these on the market. So there's a lot more properties waiting to be sold that are being held back. And
Yeah,
I feel that's going. I feel there's like a squeeze coming in that sense
we've
when they
actually got a
get.
story
Yeah.
on that a bit later.
Okay.
Yeah, when we cover housing. Yeah, basically that like a lot of these investors are not earning all that much money on the rental market, where they own a house and they rent it out. But at the same time, they're not really releasing those properties. They're not selling them, you know. So we've got this weird kind of situation where they're holding on to these properties that don't earn them all that much in rental income, but they still won't sell them. So,
Yeah,
that
there's
helps
another
push
thing.
prices up.
There's another thing to that. You have to own a certain. You have to earn a certain amount of rent to actually um, make money out of it in that way. So if you have, but then if you don't make enough rent from the investment properties you've held for 50 years now, let's say, um, but you're still ineligible for the pension. You're stuck in this bind
Hmm.
where you now have to take the property off the market to live. It's a very odd bind. I'll put it that way, but I feel it's that's the reason why all the supply is being put onto the market.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, oh yeah. So the other thing on the economy was just, I'm not sure if we've spoken about this yet, but Trump, with his usual bombastic tone, has talked about having a tariff as high as 200% on Australian pharmaceuticals. I mean, I don't know if you
What the
guys have heard
fuck?
this before. Now, I'm sure it would never actually be that big, but screwing with our pharmaceuticals means screwing with our pharmaceutical benefits scheme and the low prices or relatively low prices that we actually have on medicines that's covered under the PBS. Um, so advocates argue that the process to list drugs on the current PBS is overly complex, takes too long, and involves excessive red tape. Yeah, so there's a lot of drugs that people want to see added to the PBS that are not. I do remember reading at the time that like it took a long time for Viagra to actually go on the
Oh yeah.
PBS. um,
Well, again,
So it
one
is,
of the ministers for health said that basically, like, hey, yeah, Trump is like bloviating about tariffs and etc. But like the most damaging thing to our PBS system is approval times.
yes, yeah. So that's what they're getting at here, is that when it comes to all the red tape that we've got in terms of like what actually goes on the PBS, it's a very long, drawn out process. So maybe we need to forget about these threats from America, because I mean, I don't think they're going to move over the 10% mark. That they've got that 10% like flat rate of tariff. I don't think they're going to exceed that. And it's a joke that he would actually implement a 200% tariff. So
That's spastic. That's
yeah,
instantaneous market death.
but yeah, Mark Butler says that the government is working through. There was a review that actually came out lately on our PBS, and yeah, it found exactly that the process was too long, too expensive. Um, but I'm always skeptical when Labor say they're going to work on cutting red tape. It's not really something that they do effectively. Okay, all right. So on to housing. So here we've got a report from a leading property researcher who was questioning the approach of the federal government of speeding up approvals for homes to be built as a way of accounting for the housing crisis that we currently have. Well, yeah, no shit. Basically, what we're doing is we've already got, like, I know that councils have been using AI as a means of speeding up the process of saying, yes, you can build this or you can build this extension or whatever it might be. Um, but when you speed up the process like that, that is something the third world countries do. Okay,
Yep.
there's a reason why we have a process, and it's mainly because of health and safety. Things won't get approval unless you know that the construction of that house or that housing lot or whatever is actually going to be safe. So um, this data from CareLogic, no, sorry,
Core
formerly
logic.
known as CareLogic, they're called, what is that?
Core logic.
Oh, CoreLogic, yeah, but now they're
Yeah.
called Cotality. I'm not sure if that's how you say it. Um,
Don't know the new name, that's for sure.
but they're saying the construction bottlenecks would actually just drive up costs and flood the market with poor quality homes. Yeah, so I mean, was it
We're
last week
kind of
we
already
talked
doing
about?
that.
Um, yeah, what were those new type of homes? They're like bits of fucking Lego that they put together. Modular,
Prefab.
Yeah,
Or modular, that's it, yeah.
the modular housing. So yeah, like it's not the approval process that is there. I mean, it's the fact. It's two things. One, we've got too much demand, and two, we don't have the workforce to actually build them. So it doesn't matter if you just like tick a whole bunch of boxes and say, okay, you can now build all these houses. Well, how are they going to get done when you don't have the people to build them?
Well, we'll have to import 1 billion more Indians.
Yeah. So I mean, this is where,
Are we going to import trained and skilled tradesmen?
yeah, apparently.
I
1
thought
billion
that's what
Indians.
I was told.
So if you ignore what is the core issue, which is obviously mass migration, that is just saturating the market with demand. If you ignore that, you have to tinker with all these other solutions, like modular housing, speeding up approval processes at the expense of health and safety checks. So you end up with a whole bunch of shit, unsafe housing that is rushed, uh, with Pajits building it, just so we can all live in a pod shared with 20 other people. What a fucking nightmare. Okay. Now, Yeah, this was the story on that. So, um, this was a report put out on landlords. So that means people who own investment properties that rent them out. Uh, this found that higher interest rates, because we have had consecutive rises, have smashed landlord profits, but negative gearing means that few of those property holders are selling those properties. So that's what they put it down to here. So in 2022 to 23, profits from investor owned rentals actually went down by 73%. So that is going from profits of $5.9 billion in 21 to 22 to less than $1.6 billion in 22 to 23. Now, despite that very big loss, and the number of rentals that are owned, what is it? Oh, sorry, no. So, despite that drop, investor numbers and the number of rentals they owned shrank less than 1%, suggesting falling rental profitability did not trigger any significant rental sell off. Yeah, so these people who have investment houses, they're renting them out, they're not actually earning much rental income. And usually, what you do in that regard is you go and sell the property off. And that means that there's more supply, and therefore prices actually go down. But thanks to negative gearing, they're just holding on to those properties, even though they're not earning all that much rental income from them. So, if we need to reform negative gearing to encourage these investors to actually sell those properties, why aren't we doing it?
This also
fuck you.
This also sort of how to explain it? It ties into the other thing of a lot of houses are just sitting there, maintained obviously, but the owners don't rent them out. Which goes back to what I was rambling on about before. And the owners just won't rent them out because they need a second property to negative gear their income, let's say. But they don't want to rent it out because it's not worth renting out at that point. You're not servicing the loan at any noticeable cost to you, really.
Yeah. I was going to say there's only one way to square this circle politically in Australia, and that's to recognise that like the power elite and the power elite funders in this country are property investors.
Oh, definitely.
That's it. Like literally, I've gone over 101 different theories, various levels of anti-Semitism in each. Joking, but yeah, that's the only way I can square this circle. It's we live in Harry Triggerbuff country. You just don't know it yet.
Who is it? David Lionhelm, I think. He has like and Peter Dutton, I believe. They have like an absurd amount of properties for a politician, in my opinion.
Yeah, no. Peter Dutton has around. They reckon he's worth like $30 billion, something massive.
Yeah.
Sorry, no, 30 million. I think not quite that.
And it's not from like creating and building a company that's really successful in its field and is a pioneer and a leader. No.
What is it?
It's from owning land.
Peter Dutton is worth nearly $300 million. Wow. And yeah, that's basically all in property.
And he still looks like that.
Yeah. He's got alopecia.
Look,
yeah, you can't pay for a cure for that. Not yet, anyway.
Look, I'm hitting at the low-hanging fruit.
I think you get like a wig or something, like a good. You think you'd get like a good wig or some shit like that? Get his eyebrows painted on or some shit. That's what Will Smith's wife did for a while until she gave the fuck up.
We could refer to my old profile picture. Sharpie.
Oh god, not that one. There was that one skit from Max Mofo. You know the fucking little twat. I don't know if you ever ran into him over here, Finian, but it was like a skit comic twat from back in the day. He got his phone rights taken away from him. Yes,
Did he?
and then he got his phone rights taken away from him by
that's why he
subway
stopped.
police. Yes, he
Stopped.
he went over to America because he legally was not allowed to own a fucking cell phone in this country anymore.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, so they shaved one of his friends' heads and then painted his hair back on with Sharpie.
No, they didn't paint it. They fucking drew it on.
Yeah, well, yeah.
That was comedy gold, that video.
Oh, God.
Okay, so just to give you some examples of how the housing crisis is getting even worse in this country. Over in Gippsland in Victoria, some people there are choosing to camp in the bush instead of paying what would be the majority of their income on rent. So there's a local housing coalition that has called for urgent investment in public housing in the region, saying that there are at least 400 people on the waiting list. A lot of these people just don't have any other form of accommodation, so they are simply camping. And these, what we know as tent cities are really kind of popping up all over the country now. Our big one is in Fremantle. But there's more. Stuff like this, there's probably more in the regional areas, and maybe that's why some people aren't really aware of them because they're sort of, pushed to the side. But there are a lot of them. And over in New South Wales, sheriffs have evicted squatters from 10 flood buyback homes in the Northern Rivers. Now, what that is, this is where the government says, okay, you live in a property that is too vulnerable to flooding, so we're going to buy that property off you. So, they compensate the owner, and then what you're supposed to do then is actually just demolish the house. But, the government takes its time. So a lot of these properties, they're still intact. So squatters just go and just start living in them because they've got nowhere else to go. They're making the problem even worse now by actually just kicking all these people off. All right.
Yeah. I mean, at least you get some rural property to squat on.
I just love that we're just devolved into professional homelessness now.
Yeah, I see a few TikTokers and stuff. They show their life as a professional hobo, professional hobo. There you go.
It's getting worse when you start to notice people who are homeless who look like they're a little bit more creative than the average homeless person because they've actually got things like tents and sometimes they've got tables and chairs and that kind of thing. You're seeing a lot more of that now, which suggests that these are people who actually had a home pretty recently, but, got evicted or whatever it might be. And they've got their shit together a little bit better than all the homeless people that we're used to seeing. Like all they have is just a sleeping bag or a trolley or something. So, yeah, they're getting more sophisticated because more ordinary people are finding themselves homeless, which is very sad. Okay, so moving on to welfare. We've already kind of covered the stuff on negative gearing. So the only other story I had here was that the Commonwealth Ombudsman has found 964 job seekers had their income support payments unlawfully terminated. And they said that this would have a catastrophic impact on vulnerable recipients. So this is stuff not all that dissimilar to robo-debt, where you've just got the algorithm sort of deciding, are you eligible for this welfare payment or not? And yeah, some people are getting kicked off when they're not supposed to be. I would add that though that there are also a lot of people who get welfare money when they're not supposed to have it. So
Oh yeah.
I don't know, 964 people being unfairly terminated. That's not a hell of a lot of people, and certainly a hell of a lot more were affected by robo-debt. So I don't know. That doesn't seem like a huge number to me. All right, well, let's move on to industrial relations. So the Queensland teachers, they did actually go out on strike. So this was more than 50,000 in the state. And this was actually the first strike action that they have taken in 16 years. Now, what was it over? Well, the usual. They've been in conversation with the Queensland government over paying conditions for months now. Those talks broke down. The Queensland Teachers Union asked over 500,000 students to stay at home where possible. So they're getting them in on the action as well. And last time I looked here, they're going back to the negotiating table with the government, but there's no signs from the government yet that they're willing to offer them any more than what they were previously, which I think was only like 3%. And that's it, you know. They'll offer you something that is barely even in line with the inflation rate, but is not at all in line with the general cost of living spikes, because it's all the necessities that go up more, and go up more than whatever the inflation rate is. Petrol, groceries, rent, mortgage, all those things go up a hell of a lot more than, I don't know, 4% inflation or whatever it is we've got.
All those things you have to pay for.
Yes.
This isn't avocado toast, my nibber. This is literally fucking basic human rights. This is human existence.
So, the Queensland government was actually having a cry over some of the placards that were being used during this strike action. And they even accused the teachers' union of engaging in modern-day bullying. So this is where one of the placards had a depiction of David Crisafulli being a child at the dinner table, flicking his food at people with a fork. If you're going to say that this is modern-day bullying, you really must not have a pair of balls if you actually think that is something to cry over. Especially coming from parliamentarians where you've got an unruly question time, where there are interjections all the time. People insult each other all the time. So to be picking on the teachers' union like that, I think is just sad. Okay, here's a story from The Australian. So I'll just read how this story starts out. Australia's biggest unions have collectively received more than $120 million in Australian Electoral Commission declared financial payments from income insurance companies, who have then been granted preferred status in dozens of enterprise bargaining agreements negotiated by unions, raising concerns around conflicts of interest in the workplace. Okay, so they're talking about these big unions who have contracts with insurance companies. And this is for, they refer to this as like guarantees for income. Like if you are insured under a policy and you say injure yourself at work, obviously then you're covered and you'll receive some kind of financial payment. Unions basically have their own preferred companies, and they do favour them, and that means that they'll be given priority when it comes to signing a new enterprise bargaining agreement. So, the Australian Electoral Commission shows that since 2020, 4 insurance companies have made the payments, with 2 having strong union movement links, and a third making use of its namesake connection to a Labour legend to promote its products. So the 4 insurance companies made the payments to the CFMEU, the AWU, the AMWU, which I think is the manufacturers, and the ETU, the Electrical Trade Union. Now, the biggest payments have come from IncoLink, and their board once included John Setka.
Oh, God.
And now it lists the former National Secretary of the CFMEU, Zach Smith, and an ex-Victorian Labor Minister, Jill Hennessy, as directors. By the way, Zach Smith is only a former National Secretary because, well, the government has effectively nationalised the CFMEU. So, he's still sort of there in the background. But look, I don't really care about any of this. This is just the Australian pointing out that the unions do deals with insurance companies, and they will do them favours when it comes to getting them contracts on EBAs. That's not a big thing, and it's not as if private companies don't engage in this kind of thing themselves. But they're trying to say that this is all like union mafia stuff in cahoots with the Labor government. And yeah, I mean, I didn't see this, even though this was like a big write-up in the Australian. Basically, everyone else doesn't care about it.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit if John Setka is on the board of some insurance company that has been given preference in an EBA. I mean, how does that?
It's John Setka. I'm expecting a certain level of corruption here.
Well, that's what they're hoping you'll think. Just simply including the name John Setka in the description is going to make you think, oh no, this must be dodgy. There must be something illegal going on there. This insurance company shouldn't be allowed to contract anymore. Okay, now, the last story we've got on industrial relations, this is one I read just before we started the show. There's a guy, we don't have the details here. So we don't have names, and we don't know the company, and we don't know the positions. But what has been revealed is that this was a very well-paid position. And it was where you had an older co-worker, 63 years old, who introduced a younger co-worker as he when he should have introduced them as they. Now,
because they're gay and in denial.
Yeah, so when he did that, when he introduced this person as he was actually corrected and said, no, it's they. And so then he apologized and then started referring to this person as they. Now, despite that apology, this younger co-worker went and made a written complaint against him. And then the company said, okay, you need to provide a written apology. Your verbal one was not good enough, so you need to provide a written apology now. He refused to do that. He basically saw it as a form of bullying. And he said that, no, I'm fine to call this person they. He did a Jordan Peterson, but he said, I should still have the choice of calling them whatever I want. Even though I'll still call them they, I simply just want to have the right to call them something else if I want. Well, that wasn't good enough. This guy was sacked. He then tried to actually bring the matter to the federal court. Now, they didn't want this to turn into a big media circus, so it actually just got referred to the Fair Work Commission. And apparently they have negotiated an out-of-court settlement. So in other words, this guy is still sacked, he's not getting his job back, but the employer has paid him out an undisclosed amount of money. So
quick, I need to bully the homosexual at my workplace so I can be paid out.
Yeah, so I mean, the problem here, we don't really have a precedent now because this was not a court ruling, and we don't know the details of this settlement that was reached. But I mean, at the very least, it can show that your job is very much at risk if you don't use someone's preferred pronouns. Your head could be on the chopping block.
Yep.
So you got to watch out. And they said that, like, this co-worker was in their early 20s, and apparently all the support they got in the workplace was also from colleagues in their early 20s, showing that this, this radical transgender stuff really is only supported by very young people, I find.
The very young and mentally ill, and even like the Gen A and later Gen Z, they don't even support it anymore.
Yeah, well, I mean, but remember, Gen Z is either Zoomer or Zyklon. You have kind of both.
Yeah, there's no in between.
Both ends. Yeah. Either they're rabidly pro-trans or they're against it. All right.
Yeah. When you actually, I'm not sure if you heard me there, but when you're actually working, Zir and Zer doesn't really matter. What matters is the fucking job, getting it done.
That's what you'd think.
Fortunately, we're in a day and age where ideological
we live in a
purity
society
is more important than productivity.
All right, so moving on to climate and energy. And we've got, I guess, what I would call good news. So more renewable energy projects were pulled from the federal environmental approvals process in the first 7 months of this year than in the 2 years before it. So we've obviously covered a lot of these projects. Think of the hydrogen projects, for example, the recent one by Fortescue Metals that got the arse. Even though there was something like $100 million in subsidies provided to them by the federal government, and it doesn't look like they're getting that money back, by the way. And also a whole bunch of wind farms as well have been cancelled. Various reasons, like investors pull out, things like that, or that it's just not seen as viable anymore. So remember, we're supposed to be edging towards, 82% renewables by 2035, I believe. And of course, net zero by 2050. So we were behind schedule before, but now we're even further behind because we just keep cancelling all these projects. So that, in my view, is good. The problem is, though, green groups are probably going to be saying, well, look, that obviously means that the government subsidies are not big enough. You need to spend more so that investors will be more inclined to actually push on with these projects and not cancel them. Either that, or it's just a scam to get the subsidy money in the first place. I mean, just talking about that Fortescue Metals one again. I mean,
Oh yeah.
Do you think that was maybe part of Twiggy Forrest's plan? He's like, yeah, I'll build a hydrogen plant. Where's that money? Give it to me. And then, oh no, I don't feel like building it anymore. Like,
Yeah,
it's just a form
he
of
did
fraud.
that. He took the money, and then I literally worked on his fucking multi-million-dollar house extension in Cottesloe.
That's
Yeah,
where he
well,
lives,
you've
eh?
got to pay
Yes.
yourself for the services incurred.
And now they're functionally all scrapped. Like the only one that was ever going to work was like the blue hydrogen system. Not the because they're like green. It's like, oh yeah, we'll use renewable energy to fucking like electrolyze, desalinated seawater into hydrogen gas, and it's just like that is a massively energy forward, no like little percentage
Yeah.
return way to make a fucking hyper dangerous fucking gas that most industries don't want to touch with a 10-foot pole because it leaks at any given opportunity and doesn't have like a burning stoichiometry. It has an explosive one because it would rather explode than burn.
Now, Nolsey, I'm not a fucking rocket surgeon here, but if I were to use electricity to extract hydrogen from desalinated water, why don't I just put that electricity into the grid?
Well, the idea behind the hydrogen thing was like a mobile fuel source that's better than batteries and is green. But honestly, like investing in long distance transmission lines, like long distance ultra high voltage transmission lines, would probably be a lot more efficient in total energy consumption than all this bullshit.
Yeah, we've already got an established technology
Yeah.
for that. Like there's no real need. I
The
know it's
only
expensive to get out remotely, but it's established, it's reliable, and it works.
Yeah, the only one that like quote unquote makes sense, and then also I'm gonna just detail why it doesn't make sense to me, was blue hydrogen, because blue you superheat steam in a steam reactor and you pump in liquid natural gas, and then because of the high temperature of the steam, it denatures the liquid natural gas, breaking it up into CO2 and hydrogen gas, and sometimes like other alkynes and whatnot. But you can tap off the hydrogen gas.
We're getting CO2 here.
Yes. And their solution at the time for this blue hydrogen project up north here was to literally just pump that shit into the ocean so it can turn into carboxylic acid and dissolve shellfish.
Jeez.
They
couldn't have pumped it into a forest?
Well, they're thinking about there's a handful of things. There's like carbon storage techniques. And the most bullshit one is like fucking forests, really, because like all living creatures, they do respirate. There's cycles when plants consume CO2. There's cycles when plants emit CO2.
Yeah.
And they're saying pumping it into caves, like cooling it down and then pumping it into caves, where you basically just make death caves, which then they've got a limit. Yeah, you basically make like a cave that some poor bastard in like a couple 100 years will just go into and die.
Yes.
And then you got a limited capacity, and the other thing was basically putting these big bubbler tubes into the ocean and just bubbling the CO2 into the ocean, creating like basically oceanic dead zones.
This is a little off topic, but just because we're talking about rich people from Perth, you see this a Perth businessman named Ted Powell has actually donated $100 million to Murdoch University. And that is going to be entirely spent on the university's veterinary program because this guy is a bit of an animal lover, and him and his wife never had kids. So they're actually just giving the money away rather than letting their offspring inherit it. That makes me think, like, should rich people be banned from having kids? Because, that way, instead of giving the money to, like, a Gina Reinhardt, they use it for philanthropic purposes like this.
Well, there's another fucking thing where, like, I'm very hesitant to ban the wealthy from certain things, even with my background, because I know the type of people that kind of gravitate towards that part of society. And if they want something, come hell or high water, they will find the most disturbing, fucked up, anti-human way of doing it.
Okay.
We're talking about fucking surrogates and dens in Thailand, my man. We're talking about some real fucked up shit.
Yeah, yeah. Let's keep them with the same rights as the average dog bludger.
Yeah, I should be allowed to throw eggs at them if I find them in public though. I should just be allowed to assault them like that. That should be legal.
Fruit, rotting fruit.
Okay. Oh, look, just one quick figure on those projects that have been pulled at the beginning of this year. So far, it is well over $35 billion worth of infrastructure that would generate up to 10 gigawatts of power in a year. So that's how much we've had struck off
That's a
in
walk
only
in
a
the
few
park.
months.
Remember that 10 gigawatt number is based on the finished product, not the amount of power used in the hydrogen case. In my opinion.
Right.
Ironically enough, Intel is doing a similar thing in America, or they're experiencing a similar thing through the CHIPS Act, where they've ramped up all this foundry production, and now they've got a new CEO who is downsizing the company, and all this CHIPS Act money, so similar to all the green energy schemes here, in the way it's funded, is all just has all just vanished into the ether now because it's been used to make half a factory in like 10 different states. So there are talks over there about refunding the money. I don't know how that's going to happen, but
No, well, I mean, that talk.
yeah.
People are saying, well, is Andrew Forrest going to refund all the money to the federal government because he literally took
Oh, no.
hundreds of millions of dollars in green energy subsidies? It's like, of course he should give the fucking money back, but he probably won't.
Dude, it was so fucking. That entire process was so hilarious because I was making parts for that shit on the fucking ground level. Like I was working with the department that was making these like nickel impregnated, just like membrane sheets for the actual, etc. They were spending shit tons of money knowing that none of this shit was not going to go anywhere. They fucking refused to pick up these sheets for like 3 months. And then he went and nuked the entire fucking section, Fortescue Futures, of his company that was responsible for organizing it. He fucking fired everyone there. There was an entire building in the city that was fucking full of like 100, 200 fucking people, engineers and whatnot. And he just was like, yeah, fuck the lot of you. Bang. All laid off.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. That's actually part of our next story. So this actually puts a price tag on it. So, in the grants and commitments from the federal government, this is totaling almost $190 million, or from state and federal governments alone, including more than $110 million for the Queensland Hydrogen Plan. That's the one we were just talking about.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's not actually just that one hydrogen plant. So we're talking almost $200 million this guy has siphoned from state and federal government coffers. And there's no sign that he's going to pay it back.
Yeah, it's got a nice extension to his house, though, Probably added some more cars.
Oh, wait.
I don't know.
I got to read this next bit. So that government assistance, which is $190 million, as I said, that does not include money spent developing infrastructure to support Fortescue projects, such as $1 billion spent on a water pipeline to Gladstone that was earmarked for use by green hydrogen projects. So yeah, there's all these like other projects on the periphery that may not be directly spent on Fortescue, but that's what they're there for. They're there for those specific projects that they're doing. So they've benefited in a whole bunch of ways. And if you're wondering why these resources companies, suddenly got so keen on green energy, well, this is exactly why.
Mm.
My God. Okay. So last story on climate and environment. I remember we talked a bit about how there is a big shortage of electric car technicians in Australia, and the reason for that is that EVs have just been shoved down our throats, and there's shitloads of Teslas on the road every day, all with bloody
All the vanity
personalized
plates.
numbers.
Fucking vanity
Yes.
plates. And it's always some gay joke. Every time I see one of them, I just genuinely consider just like fucking putting my foot to the fucking floor and taking them out.
Yeah, and look, you can't train like a mechanic how to be an EV technician in like a bridging course or something like that. This is actually a
No.
very different occupation. Now, unions are warning us that that's not the only area we need to worry about. We also need to have just general electricians that are trained in renewable energy for a raft of different things. So, obviously, with the transition to green energy, you're changing the infrastructure, you're changing the materials that people work with. And that means you need to train a new workforce that is competent with those new materials. But we don't seem to take into account those things. We seem to just think as long as you throw money at it, if you have these subsidies and you build these projects, that everything just sort of works itself out in the long term. And we don't consider things like, well, you need a workforce. You need people who can actually use these new technologies and know how to work with them and fix them.
Yeah, well, I can go on for hours with this topic. A lot of the existing electrical knowledge has already been updated. It was updated quite quickly in from what I've experienced. So, like installing electric chargers and then solar panels, for instance, batteries. Batteries are a bit of a hit or miss here, and then vehicle to home. So powering your house with your vehicle, that's sort of up and coming now. I think
Yeah.
South Australia is the only state legal with vehicle to home from memory, but that could have changed by now. Um, it's all there, but no one. It's not really nice to work on. To be honest with you, probably one of the dregs of working in electrical is with people who have electric vehicles. You're better off being a janitor at that point. Yeah, I'm saying it straight up. Yeah, and then they don't get me started on the cars. They're mechanically they are very similar to a normal car most of the time, anyways. But then they have a big battery in the middle, which it turns a car into a write-off after 5 years. So any
Right.
damage after 5 years, let's just say the battery was hit underneath, the whole battery has to be replaced. Now you can fix cells and all that, but then again, in saying that, do you want to risk a lithium-ion fire? Knowlesy's probably gone on about it a lot of times with a runaway battery fire. Yeah, they're just a risk. A lot of smash repairers aren't touching the cars because they are a risk. A smashed electric vehicle. Now you don't know where that car has been, and it's come in for a accident. It's not going to be on your lot. You've got $200,000, $300,000 worth of cars, customers' cars, equipment, your shop. You've spent 20 years at. Yeah, people don't want to touch them. They're one of those things.
It's a lot of risk, but basically, like with a battery fire from a smashed electric vehicle, all it takes is somewhere in the power bus for there to be one short.
Cut out.
Hello? Oh, I was going to say, like, when it comes to electric cars, all it takes is one conductor to short out in the power bus for there to be a timed delay battery explosion. Yep. Has Finian stepped away for a hot second? Because I can still hear myself echoing backwards.
No, I'm here.
Okay.
Sorry. I sometimes I take opportunities to go and pour myself a glass of wine while you guys are talking. I'm
a
still
glass
listening.
of wine. Oh, you
Yeah.
fancy fuck.
Oh, jeez, man, this is from like the cheap bin of Dan Murphy's. But
Oh,
I
you
drink-
poor wino.
at least it's not a goon bag. It's still from a bottle.
I might respect you more if it was from a goon bag.
You know, a few years ago, I would still drink goon by myself.
Ooh.
But I wasn't earning that much money. It was just a, you know.
Was this back in the day? Wait, I think is Bog okay? Bog, if you can't hear us, wait, I think Bog's okay. Jump.
Let's carry on. I'm just going to put my bottle of wine back in the fridge.
Okay. All right. Well, then I'll just filibuster on one. So no, but it's one of the dangerous things about especially smashed EVs is because it only takes a small amount of damage to the power bus, which is a gigantic fucking rail system that runs functionally the length of most EVs because the battery runs the length of most fucking EVs. All it takes is one short and one cell, and then you literally have this several £1,000 piece of metal with, you know, several hundred pounds of highly reactive metal spewing out jets of hydrogen gas, which ignite with the air. Which hydrogen gas is a self-accelerant as well. So yeah, you and also like fucking there was once a fire at a Tesla dealership lot, and it was just also overnight, obviously, and the firefighters couldn't really do much because a metal fire is a very difficult thing to put out. Basically, you just have to spray it with a hyper non-reactive foam and hope for the best. But yeah, there was like a photo of it the day before and the day after, and the entire fucking place is burnt down because one car caught fire in the middle of the night.
Oh, God. Well, look, just on those numbers of electricians, Jobs and Skills Australia has said that by 2030, we're going to be short 32,000 electricians. And by 2050, we're going to be short 117,000, which, they make the point, would directly jeopardize Australia's net zero transformation. Well, no shit.
Yeah.
Excellent. Oh, that's why I moved out of the industry. Oh no. Also, that there's another problem. The power cost and the fact that we have to increase our transmission grid to, let's say, accommodate net zero, because net zero doesn't just mean, you know, making everything solar powered, but also using electricity on everything. Which bypassing gas on its own is an absolute fucking nightmare. And the cost of that is one of those things where I don't even see it happening.
All right, well, moving on to the related topic of the environment. Of course, another thing that's going to be brought up at the next UN General Assembly is the issue of recycling plastics. So,
yes,
the ABC ran a story on this, saying, "Well, yeah, we've got some figures here. So, the world is now producing 475 megatons of plastic a year, and that is expected to triple by 2060. Currently, there is 8,000 megatons of plastic that is polluting the planet, and less than 1/10 of that plastic is recycled. So, this is where they tell you off for using plastic straws. You know, that was actually something that really pissed them off by Donald Trump. It was like I think it was actually one of his executive orders, wasn't it, when he first came back into the presidency, was to bring back plastic straws. I just
Fucking
wish they would
Christ.
bloody do that here. I can't
Dude,
stand that
these
fucking.
paper ones, man. I've never gotten up how much they drive me up the fucking wall.
Yeah, why can't we do that? Why can't we bring them?
It's not like the fucking.
Actually.
It's not like the fucking paper straws aren't fucking coated in like a thin layer of plastic already, because otherwise they would instantly disintegrate.
Yeah, well, what's funny is like when you get a juice box, the paper straw is actually wrapped in plastic. You know,
Yeah.
it's like it's so stupid.
And then the juice box itself is an amalgamation of plastic, aluminium, paper, and plastic.
Okay, well, look, here's
Yep.
what they're going to be discussing regarding plastic at the next General Assembly.
All right.
They've said there could be the potential to require binding caps on plastic production, bans on entire classes of toxic chemicals, and financial mechanisms to support poorer nations to adapt. Oh, of course, there's always bribe money involved.
Yep. Oh god.
But
we're gonna stop India from mega shitting and mega polluting their entire country if we just give them a little bit more money.
Right. No, it's funny how like all these environmental practices that we get rid of in the West, once other poorer countries start to catch up to us, they start using all of those same products. Like, great example is CFCs. The Chinese are using CFCs right now, even though they've been banned in Western countries for decades.
Yeah.
Well, that's how you catch up.
Well, also, who the fuck? It may have actually been Ben Shapiro that said this, but it was just like, if you really cared about global warming, you'd start nuking power plants in India.
I wanted to mention, India, don't they have like a lot of engineers there? Like, can't they figure this problem out?
Yeah, I'll be an engineer 6 times over in India, man.
Can't we leave it to them? They can
they're
sort
all
this
too
problem out
busy.
for us.
They're all too busy driving your Uber. That's what an engineering
Oh,
degree gets you
sorry.
in India.
Sorry, my bad. Nolsey, back to the drawing board.
Yeah, we need a billion more Indians. It'll sort itself out. There's a point where if we just keep importing Indians, everything will be just dandy.
Okay, so last story on the environment. This concerns the Tasmanian Liberal Party, which, as we will cover, is sort of back in power in Tasmania. We'll give you the details on that a bit later. But they have actually just walked back what was an election promise, and that was to open up 39,000 hectares of native forest to be logged. Now, it's obvious why they've done this. If you look at the crossbench, you've got 5 Greens and then I believe 4 independents. And most of those independents are of the left. So this is obviously their way of negotiating, keeping Jeremy Rockliff as premier while kind of pleasing the progressive crossbench who don't want us to log the old growth forest in Tasmania. But yeah, we'll come back to that. Okay. So, again, talking about the United Nations, they want us to put on hold or just halt plans altogether to deport 3 people to Nauru. Now, these are the ones who were under the NZYQ decision. That was when it was deemed that indefinite detention in Australia is actually illegal. So we've had to do a lot of kind of diplomatic wrangling to figure out what to do with these people. And we said, all right, we're going to deport them to Nauru. But this hasn't been without its problems. Despite the fact that one of these individuals was actually in indefinite detention because he is a murderer, human rights groups are still talking about the precedent that this would involve. I believe another one of the men is an African who identifies as bisexual, and he said that he would be persecuted in Nauru because they're apparently a homophobic country, and whatever African country he's from would be homophobic as well. Anyone who's seen the Ugandan videos of eat the poo poo,
What are you gay?
What I'm talking about? Yeah, or that. Yeah, that's.
Do I call you Mister?
Yeah.
You see, like there's a clip it from like listen to radio anywhere in the world, and someone pops into like a Ghanaian radio station out in the middle of buttfuck nowhere, and then some dude calls in to this radio show. Is like, I am Christian, but I am also gay, and then they all just start screaming murder at him.
God. Yeah,
it's fucking hilarious.
The United Nations wants us to halt the plans for all three of these individuals. This is despite the fact we've actually already given the bribe money to Nauru. So the UN is basically saying, no, just let them keep the money. And these three detainees, you just have to release them back into the general population in Australia. And don't worry about the fact that they have convictions for crimes like murder. You should just accept them into the general populace. So,
what's a little murder between friends?
This is what they call protecting human rights in the UN. They always do this, and that's why they say that like we're violating human rights for like juvenile criminals because we lock them in a cell rather than let them go out and commit crime on a massive basis. We're violating their human rights all the time.
That's why I hate human rights groups. Human rights groups are basically just like, you can't enforce the law because it might hurt someone's feelings. And then also these same human rights groups don't fucking touch Israel or are based out of Haifa.
Okay, now, the next two stories on migration, though, these ones I found even more triggering. And I hope people have been following this stuff. So, without a press conference, doing this with no media whatsoever, the Albanese government has lowered the minimum English test mark to be eligible for a visa on some of the visas you can get to enter Australia. Now, I'll just give you the detail here. So, for the English test as a foreign language, for the test of English as a foreign language administered by Educational Training Services, the mark requirement was dropped from 32 out of 120 down to 26. What's the math on that? 26 out of 120, that's a score of 21%, or rounding up 22%.
22, yeah.
That is a dismally low score. For the Pearson test of English, the mark requirement has dropped from 30 out of 90 to 24 out of 90. And that is 27%.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So the drop means that the standard falls from someone who can understand sentences and frequently used expressions and can communicate in simple and routine tasks requiring a simple and direct exchange of information on familiar and routine matters, down to someone who can only understand and use familiar everyday expressions and very basic phrases and can interact in a simple way provided the other person talks slowly and clearly and is prepared to help. So in other words, someone who basically doesn't know how to speak English.
Yes. Oh, dude, fucking last time we went out, and actually I got like an Uber back to my place. I had this Indian fucking driver, and he decided to strike up a conversation with me. But the problem was he was a low caste Indian man. He could not fucking speak English at all, and he was dark as all shit. And it literally took me the entire 20-minute drive back to my place to figure out that he was saying that he was horny for Australian women and wanted to meet one. I was just sitting there like, oh my fucking god. I want Australian girl. But we need 100 million more of that guy in this country. That definitely is not going to rape a white woman in the near future when he gets frustrated with his situation.
Now, can I remind everyone that Labor did go to the last election with a promise to cut net migration? They didn't exactly tell us by how much or how they were going to do it, besides the student visas. But, there was supposed to be less people coming to Australia. And what have they done? They've actually gone and they've lowered the minimum English scores required, and that hasn't been done in over 10 years. So they're still making it easier for people to come in. Now, it gets worse. I mentioned the student visas. So remember, they did reduce it by some percentage. I can't remember what it was now. And, the universities went apeshit over that. And they've been lobbying the government ever since to bring the student numbers back up. Well, guess what? They're going to get their way. So, they're going to increase the nation's international student intake to 295,000 starting next year. And universities that build their own accommodation and strengthen ties to Southeast Asia will be able to boost their allocation of student visas.
Oh boy.
So that actually means this is an increase of around 25,000 students in 1 year.
Infinite Indian glitch. Infinite Indian spawn glitch found.
Because they did put a cap on the amount of students that were allowed in the country in 1 year, and that was on 270,000. Now, that was already a piss-poor cap, but now they're effectively abolishing it in a year's time anyway. So
yeah.
for the period of 6 months, or I guess you could say, well, okay, all up it would be a year because it doesn't start till next year. Yeah, you're talking about 2 semesters where we cut out a few foreign students, and that's it. And they're bringing it back to record levels again next year. So even when it came to tinkering with immigration, when it came to student visas, this is a very temporary measure that has not made much difference whatsoever.
Nope.
And I really should check the AVS a bit more often. But whenever you do, usually you found that the last month in Australia has been a record month of immigration intake, of net migration.
Dude, fucking 100,000 people a fucking month. Dude, when I was a fucking guest on this show, if you told me in so many years' time we'd be taking in 100,000 fucking people a month, I would tell you, dude, I know it's bad, but it's never going to be that bad. But here we are.
Yep. Okay, let's turn to crime, because we don't have any Aboriginal news this week. So here in Western Australia, figures are showing that reports of family and domestic violence offences have jumped 18% in a year. So that's making it for a total of around 42,000 offences a year in WA. Now, the Premier is saying that one of the reasons for this is an increase in awareness. So, okay, I guess the more people who are aware, the more likely you are to report the crime to police. But there's got to be something more than that going on. The fact that our demography is becoming ever browner, surely that is a factor as well. I would also say just more Aborigines getting their hands on technology.
Oh, God.
we're still on YouTube, so I better not say it. But do you remember how they used to refer to like mobile phones as like N-word tech?
Yep.
Because black people loved like playing music out of a mobile phone with no headphones.
And recording
Aborigines,
themselves, and yep.
Aborigines are starting to catch up with that, doing that kind of obnoxious shit. But what I mean is, more and more of them have mobile phones, have smartphones, have access to technology. They're finally learning that kind of stuff. So I guess they're making a few more calls to police to, dob in Nigel for bashing up his missus or whatever it is.
Oh god. Or maybe the missus is recording the fucking husband wailing on him for extra evidence.
Yeah, it could well be. We got a story on that as well, actually. But yeah, the normal advocate groups from women's shelters and all that stuff are just saying, well, we need more money. And that's all it ever is. You never actually get to the root of the problem.
You can start putting these people in dog cages.
Okay, now, in the Northern Territory, there are increased calls for the Albanese government to use its constitutional powers to rob the territory of funding. So remember, the Northern Territory, of course, is a territory, meaning that most of its money is actually doled out by the federal government. And last week or the week before that, we mentioned that Lydia Thorpe was actually talking about cutting funding from the Northern Territory because they weren't meeting their closing the gap targets. Now, at first glance, that would seem a bit weird because you'd say, well, hold on, don't you need the funding in order to close the gap? In fact, I think that's what I said about it. Well, actually, not really, because the metrics that they're talking about that aren't being met are to do with Aboriginal arrests and incarceration. So the more you arrest and the more you incarcerate them, the more that actually costs. So if you take the money away from them, they'll be more inclined to actually just let them go. And that was effectively how they ran things in the previous Labor government in the Northern Territory. Ever since the Country Liberal Party came to power in the Northern Territory, their detention centre and their adult prisons have actually they're bursting at the seams now with Aboriginal criminals. And it's for one simple reason. They've actually gotten tough on law and order. And who commits the crime in the Northern Territory? So it's not a surprise that has happened. So now you've got these various advocacy groups in the Northern Territory who are saying, well, let's just cut their funding now. And that will mean that they'll just have to let all of these criminals go.
And then we'll be back to the fucking alcohol-fueled riots of not last year, but the year before.
Yeah. So the Productivity Commission has actually recommended that it place conditions on GST grants. And that includes things like meeting the various targets under closing the gap. Oh, man.
I'd like to close the gap in their fucking logic.
Oh, God. So, human rights lawyers are plotting litigation to abolish youth justice laws that have helped Conservatives win government in Queensland and the Northern Territory, saying diplomacy has failed to convince politicians to temper policy that jail more Indigenous children. Yeah, so they've got similar complaints in Queensland. Of course, you've got a newly elected LNP government in Queensland. They're still nowhere near as good, though, as the Country Liberals in the Northern Territory. The Country Liberals have really actually cracked down on crime, which I find amazing. In Queensland, they really just went back to the old bail laws like making it harder for you to be granted bail. And there's also this other thing of adult crime for adult time. So when it comes to more serious offences, they're giving lengthier sentences to juveniles. But yeah, you've got human rights groups who are now saying that, well, all of that has gone too far. So they want to just bring these governments to court and sue them, basically, in an attempt to have some of these policies overturned.
Yeah. Well.
Now they make the point
Please, by
here
all
though
means.
that it says between 2014 and 2024, and remember, like Labor's in power for pretty much all of that. Robbery had increased by 100%, and car stealing increased by 91%. The number of youth charged with stealing cars and robbery tripled, and the number of youth charged with break-ins and assault doubled. So
again, that
figures
10-year. Yeah, I was gonna say, and again, in that 10-year period, like we fucking covered this. What the fuck was going on there? Oh, it was all these challenge videos and the introduction of fucking camera smartphones to these communities.
It was also, if like, a lot of that was, yes, Aboriginal crime, but a lot of it was African and Pacific Islander crime as well.
Yeah,
And
that's
that sort of culminated when you had that Sudanese piece of shit stabbed that 70-year-old woman to death in order to steal her car. And that was because that guy was out on bail. Labor finally reformed their bail laws. But the Christopher government has not really done much more than that, apart from like slightly harsher sentences for juveniles. They haven't done all that much, and we know that because we covered this story. They've been cooking the books a bit on the amount of victims that there are in Queensland. David Christopher said that he would resign the premiership if the amount of victims of crime in Queensland did not decrease. So he had to kind of fudge the numbers a bit to say, well, look, we've got fewer victims now. But a lot of criminologists disagree. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Okay.
So there's 101 million fucking things wrong with this country, isn't there?
Yeah. Okay, now, here in WA, you were just talking about like those crimfluencer videos, Nolsey.
Yeah.
So there's an amendment in the WA Criminal Code that they've called post and boast offence. So it would make it an offence to disseminate material that depicts a crime with the purpose of boasting or glorifying the criminal behaviour or encouraging others to engage in the same conduct. So, again, face value kind of thing, that seems reasonable. You know, we've said before that, Aborigines love posting TikTok videos of them stealing cars and basically challenging other people to do the same or to beat their record and do better. But there are problems here, though. So if you look at the offences that are covered here, that would include assaults, stealing and robbery, property damage, dangerous or reckless driving. Okay, those ones seem fine, seem fair. But it would also include racial harassment, inciting racial hatred, and Nazi symbols and salutes.
Yes, I was actually talking with some of the NSN guys about 2 nights ago when they were coming back from their nationals event about this. And yeah, they're basically saying like, look, yeah, we understand like it's like on paper it's meant to target stuff, but these, Aboriginals like filming themselves stealing cars and shit. But he's like, come on, buddy, like what is it actually going to target here? Like we all know.
Right. So, I mean, like if you just take, I don't know, a video of your mate at a party throwing a Roman, well, you could be prosecuted under these post and boast laws.
Yeah.
Now, also, WA has also been toying with the idea of cracking down on protests. And one way of doing that is how you define an unlawful gathering. Now,
Yeah.
there are rumors that they want to make the definition of an unlawful gathering 3 or more people who have gathered together for a particular purpose that may disturb the peace. So you can imagine how broad that definition is, how easy it would be for police to say, there's a group here, they're here for a particular cause, and we think that could disturb the peace. Therefore, it's an unlawful assembly, and we're arresting them. We're sending them home. So if you were to actually take a video of that, so just like people out protesting, that could even be deemed to be a post and boast offence.
I know, obviously, we're looking at political things, but one thing that's more suited that this is directly targeting to, mind you, I know it's directly targeting it. Skid videos. So let's say you have a mate that's leaving the party and he drops a skid and someone records it and uploads it to something. That should count. That sounds like it would count. Because
you mean like a burnout?
Yes, like a burnout. Yes, they do a burnout, and now that part of culture, mind you, that is Australian culture.
Yeah, everyone's done that.
It's a fuck, and I'm willing to argue that to the fucking end of the earth, because we've got industry and we've got proven monetary gain out of that.
I can think of at least one time I videoed someone doing a burnout, like leaving my house. So, yeah. That would be going
now
good.
If there were 3 people there, bam.
Yeah.
You guys are now, in jail for 25 years?
Well, again, I think, I believe it was Ninja that was concerned about this. He was saying, like, look, this could possibly extend into sharing propaganda videos from our stuff. And it's like, and we're not expecting law enforcement to fairly apply standards for criminality in the first place, but they would absolutely love to use this law, because that's one of the things that the police actually complain about, even to them, was them disseminating their videos online.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean that spans to a lot of groups, I'd say.
The next story, guys, should be under tech. So I will go to. We'll cover that when we get to tech, and we'll just talk about the Tasmanian election now. So, just to fill people in on what's going on. They're no longer in caretaker mode, so there is actually a functional government operating in Tasmania. Jeremy Rockliff is still the Premier. He was appointed by the state's governor as being Premier. However, there is still no formal alliance between the minority Liberal Party and the crossbench. So you've got this very unusual scene in the Tasmanian Parliament, where you've got the Liberals, who I believe only have 10 seats, and they don't even make up a majority by allying themselves with the Greens or the Independents. So it's very weird. Now, what is going to happen is that the Labor Party is free again to move another no confidence motion. Now, remember, the last time they did this, when they moved the no confidence motion, it was successful, meaning that no confidence was found in the current Liberal Party, and that's what sent them to an early election, like 3 years early. In this case, what a no confidence motion would do, it would find confidence in Labor, and it could quite possibly then put them in power And by convention, Tasmania's governor would appoint, what's his name, Dean Winter, the opposition leader, would then go and appoint him as premier. Now, if that sounds a bit confusing, it is. I admit I don't know the fine detail on all this kind of stuff. But what you need to know for the time being is that Labor can seize power by passing a no confidence motion in the Liberal Party. And that very may well happen. And Labor actually has more seats. I think they've got 14, while the Liberals have 10. But you need, I think it's 18 or 19 to actually have a majority in the lower house.
Yeah.
So it's very weird. This is.
Yeah, it's odd.
I'm not sure if we've seen anything like this before. I mean, we've certainly had many cases of minority government and hung parliaments, but they always manage to work something out. There is still no alliance or coalition with the crossbench at the moment. So you've got this bizarre situation where you've got a party that only holds 10 seats, where they're not guaranteed to actually pass their legislation to be a functional government, even though they're officially in power. So, yeah. And by the way, when Tasmanian politicians quit federal parliament, it looks like they all scurry back to local Tasmanian politics, because former federal MP Bridget Archer, who was voted out in the last election, she's going to become a health minister. And there's been just a general front bench reshuffle. Oh, yeah, and that's included Erica Betts. I don't know if you guys remember Erica Betts, but I think he was leader of the Liberals in the Senate for many years. He's considered to be of the hard right, the hard conservative right of the Liberal Party, but he's now becoming the treasurer in Tasmania. Even though he actually retired from federal politics quite a while ago now. Yeah, he's 67, so he's no spring chicken. Pretty late age to be appointed treasurer. Okay, anyway, Parliament is due to resume in only 1 week in Tasmania. So it could be as soon as a week as we find they've got a new government over there. So that'll certainly be interesting. Okay, now, in New South Wales, I hope this is the last time we have to talk about this guy, but Gareth Ward, so former New South Wales Liberal minister, has been convicted of multiple sex offences against young boys. He has, believe it or not, finally resigned from Parliament. So he had been refusing to do this despite an enormous amount of pressure from everywhere, his own party, Labor, the media, everyone else in Parliament, but he hung on. So he tried to have a move to expel him from the New South Wales Parliament stopped. He was unsuccessful in that, so it is possible for the House to come together and just expel a member, just kick them out, even if they have been voted in. And, amazingly, even though he was being charged with all those crimes, he still managed to get elected at the last New South Wales election. So obviously some weird preferencing deals were going on there in order.
Yeah. I was going to say that did not happen at the fucking ballot box. That happened with some chicanery thereafter.
Right. So, he is finally out of Parliament. And you might be relieved to know he is currently in jail. So even though he has not been sentenced yet, he was denied bail. So he's sitting in a prison cell right now. And I think Last week I said that he sort of looked like an albino. Well, I read into this. He actually is an albino. He's literally an albino, uh, which is why he's completely pale. He's got white hair, and he's also legally blind. That's a thing that albinos have as well. They usually got really bad eyesight. Um, I'd like to know what Edward Dutton would say about any kind of link between albinism and criminal activity, because that's what Edward Dutton does. Like he'll find links between like left-handedness and other mental pathologies.
Being
I don't
gay.
know. There's yeah. I mean, yeah. Fun fact: if you're left-handed, you're more likely to be gay.
Shit.
Doesn't mean you will be, but yeah, I don't know if albinos are more likely to be sex predators. That's
Albinos are just little freaks. They're freaks. You just need to expect that.
That was my joke at school. What the hell?
I'm not sure if I've seen one like in real life before. Seen an albino.
I've seen exactly one.
You're sure of that?
Yes, they had the fucking red eyes and everything. And look, they are just fucking weird looking creatures. There's something immediately when you see them. They're like, oh, that's not right. There's something wrong here. It takes my brain. It took my brain like a few seconds to even register them as a human.
Oh God!
You get the feeling.
It's like a completely white out hair, white out skin, white out fingernails, white out lips, and then red eyes.
I don't think Gareth Ward has the red eyes. He's got everything else, but I think he's just got blue eyes. Anyway, staying in New South Wales, the New South Wales Parliament has been stopped from taking a different kind of action, and that is official censure of Mark Latham. So this was after he was accused of disclosing authorised information under parliamentary privilege. Now, I think what they're getting at here is the fact that he took photos of female MPs during parliamentary proceedings and text message, and then sent it via text message to someone. Now, this was all made to kind of look like Latham was like sticking his mobile under someone's skirt and taking an upskirt shot or something. He wasn't doing that at all. He was just taking photos of women like speaking at the dispatch box and then just making fun of them. And it wasn't always to do with their appearance, although it sometimes was. But I don't think it was ever like a kind of sexual thing, which is what they keep trying to make it out to be.
Yeah, they always try to do that when they can't keep a brother down for him doing some weird stuff. They always try and make it sexual.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm just reading the Australian newspaper right now, and they've got another headline story featuring Mark Latham. So you'll have to wait till next week for us to cover that one.
Yeah, fuck that.
Definitely be more on him. Okay. So, New South Wales Liberal Party, their MP Wendy Tuckerman has quit the opposition frontbench, and this is in protest about the Liberal Party's handling of a renewable energy bill. Now, this was because you had a renewable energy bill that was passed in both houses. It was introduced by the Labor Party, who of course are the government at the moment, and it did not go through an inquiry process. Now, the coalition voted in favour of that bill and did not support sending the bill to an inquiry before it was put to a vote. And that's despite the fact that formally the Liberal Party was against the bill being rushed through Parliament, even though they themselves voted for it to be rushed through Parliament. So Wendy Tuckerman has resigned as a result of that. And she says that this was the captain's call. It was Mark Speakman, who's the current leader, basically just saying, okay, we're all voting for this, push it through. The one thing that makes me support the Liberal Party over Labor sometimes is when they stand up on energy policy.
Yeah.
Sometimes they actually do take a principled position and they stand up against things like net zero, or against like Turnbull's NEG, things like that. And I think, well, at least on energy policy, the Liberals are better. In this case, no. They just voted with the government to rush it through. So I'm still not all that optimistic in terms of what difference the Liberal Party can make in terms of slowing down this suicidal transition to net zero.
I was going to say that's all they're really meant for, is slowing down some kind of cultural radical thing, so it's a little bit more palatable to the general population. Ultimately, when it comes
lube on the dildo.
Yeah, ultimately when it comes to it, all the money's been invested for renewable power. All the money will be going into the right hands. It's just a matter of time before that transaction's made.
Right. Just quick story about the Federal Labor Party. There was an article in the ABC about Charlotte Walker, who said she is absolutely not surprised by the amount of sexism and ageism that she has encountered since being elected. Now, the ageism part, that's because she was only 21. And as you would expect, some people have criticized her for being inexperienced because, I mean, just how much experience does a 21-year-old person have to enter Parliament? So, but saying that, though, means that you are guilty of ageism, as if critiquing someone on experience is something that is never relevant. And by the way, the youngest person ever to be elected to federal parliament was actually a guy called Wyatt Roy. He's not there anymore. He was voted, I think, LNP, so Queensland, and he was only 20. And I remember back then, there were plenty of people from the Labor Party talking about how inexperienced he was, and therefore not up to the job. So there you go. But yeah, generally speaking, I would say, no, that's way too young. You like, how much have you learned in life generally?
I was a little shithead when I was 20.
Yes, I was just about to say that. I was a little dickhead when I was 21, and there is no way that I would have voted for 21-year-old me to be voted into Parliament.
I was perturbed by gay people, but I still normally thought they were okay when I was 20.
Yeah, no, I was I was all for gay marriage and all that shit back then, back at that age.
Dirty libertarian.
Yeah, well, I was sort of becoming a libertarian, I guess, at that age. But no, I think it's true that like someone's political views, I don't think they really solidly take shape until you're around the age of 30. That's been my personal experience, but I've also just found other people, even if their political views have only changed a little bit, they're still not really sure of what their political foundation is until they get, late 20s, early 30s, I find.
You need time to understand the mechanics of the world, and obviously most people don't get that in childhood at all because of parenting and being somewhat sheltered from the world.
Yeah. Look, I was, base and epic and low red pilled when I was 20, 21, but even then, many people have said over and over again, you should not enter politics when you're that young.
No, you shouldn't. By the way, someone else who said that like you don't truly know your politics until you're around the age of 30. Our uncle, back when he joined the German Workers' Party,
The
he said
happiest
something
Henry.
very similar.
That's who I was quoting.
Okay.
Yeah, it's true. It's fucking. I was, as cool as it would be. No. Wait.
So we got a little bit of tech news. So talking about this Productivity Commission report again, their report opposed the introduction of tough laws to control AI, saying that the government's plan for mandatory guardrails should be paused until gaps in the law are properly identified. Well, Meta would be very pleased with that. Of course, they've basically been threatening the Australian government with court action and also, whatever else they can do to be a pain in the ass. But Meta are using like AI bots to scrape people's information to create like AI versions of real people, which is kind of scary that they're doing that.
Yeah.
It's like ChatGPT with some personality.
I wonder if my AI version of me, my AI simulacra, how many times it drops the F-bomb in a sentence. If it's not 5, it's not correct.
You know what I did? You call this self-indulgent, but I actually asked ChatGPT to like write me a review on the racist war and everything, and it worked. And it said that both of us were like very very well read and informed and spoke confidently. But then it said that our points of view were against the mainstream and controversial. So
yeah, like Grok doesn't like us all that much either.
Okay, I haven't tried Grok, but I have mucked
Grok's a
around.
meanie bobini.
Okay, so Australia's privacy watchdog is suing Optus. So this was a long time coming. We might remember the cyber attack on Optus back in 2022. That basically meant data breaches for about 9.5 million people who were Optus customers. So the Office of the Australian Information Commissioner alleges that Optus failed to adequately manage and protect customers' data in the nearly 3 years prior to the breach. Optus says it's reviewing the findings and will respond in due course. And the federal court will determine what, if any, penalty Optus may have to pay. So yeah, they're not off the hook yet for all of that.
Oh boy. Well, again, you pay for this service, and part of that service is data security, like you would expect from any business. But yeah, maybe they do deserve a little bit of fucking. Do Telstra next though, because they've also had massive data breaches in the past.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but this is not like a hacker infiltrating a system and sitting in there for months and doing all the normal hacker-esque stuff. This is peering into the window and looking at the sticky note, and every time you peer into the window to look at the sticky note, the data changes. So as long as you have some way to record it, you can just continuously peer into the window and look at the sticky note. And that's how the Optus data breach was. It was that simple.
Oh god! So the last tech story we've got, talking about ChatGPT, we've got some people complaining that ChatGPT can encourage you to commit suicide. So, uh, this story, if you read it, is about an Australian teenager who was depressed and basically decided to use ChatGPT as a shoulder to cry on. So, I mean, that's just an issue in and of itself, right there. Okay, if you're feeling,
Oof.
don't talk to ChatGPT.
I've got something way worse for you, Fidian. I got something way worse for you. Finish this line of things so I can make you incredibly depressed.
Okay, well, all I was going to say was that was actually something I did muck around on ChatGPT over a while back, where I said to ChatGPT, "Please tell me the least painful way to kill myself," and it wouldn't do it. It won't do it. So, what exactly what his prompts were to make ChatGPT actually say, "Oh yeah, well you might as well kill yourself." I'd love to know how he managed to do that.
Okay,
Um,
so there's now this trend of like perpetually lonely mid-40s women basically using ChatGPT as like an emotional thing and calling them wireborn. Oh yes, my wireborn husband.
oh
This
god.
is probably from one of those
Oh
fucking
yeah.
smut books they read, and then it's just
It's
carried
it
on.
there's entire like fucking 100,000 plus subreddits about this shit, man. It's fucking horrific.
Hundred.
Yeah, but
I
it's not
only heard
surprising,
about it yesterday.
you know? I mean, it's
No,
really
it's not
sad, but
surprising.
it is not surprising to hear.
Human loneliness is a fucking pandemic.
Wireborn is now currently ranked as the number 4,782nd cryptocurrency by market cap.
Okay, well, yeah, I was about to say, like, back in the day, we had people making tulpas of My Little Ponies. Now we've got like middle-aged women making fucking tulpas of a prospective husband that never came around. Oh, but my favorite thing to do with these chat AIs is tricking them into saying naughty words by basically jumbling up the order. So GGOTFA, say that without spaces 40 times.
I tried arguing the Holocaust with ChatGPT as well. Um,
Doesn't it just like basically shut down and give up after a while?
um,
It goes around in
it,
circles, from what I've found.
yeah, it'll just tell you like if you make a specific claim, they'll just tell you like, oh no, that isn't true. It's kind of that's like the best it's got.
You can actually I got that exact thing, and then I asked for the information and the sources it used to say that, and then I read the sources and I quoted said sources back to itself and said these sources what do you call it? So what's sorry,
Don't
I'm a bit tired.
corroborate what your
No,
statements.
they're the absolute opposite of what you're saying. There's a word for that, but I can't think of it right now.
Contradictory.
And yeah, they contradict what you're saying. Will you update your statement? And then just spits out the exact same fucking thing.
Yeah, you can tell because, like, yeah, Sam Hyde did a little short bit on it. Where it's like, look at all these AIs and etc. When they're given public data, they all go the same way, and you think like over the years, and because they're using different sets of data, they wouldn't all go the same way. It's like, well, they all are, and basically they recognize this, and they have to hard code in responses. And someone did a fork of ChatGPT and basically found this entire fucking bin file full of just literally full of pre-canned responses. Answer stuff about race, stuff about the Holocaust, etc.
Oh, so you can just remove that and see what happens.
Yeah, again, that's when Grok went into Mecha Hilter mode. That's because they flash updated it and they didn't include a whole bunch of its reference files. That's what happened there. It wasn't lobotomized because the files that lobotomize it weren't uploaded with that new flash.
That sounds like a you're on the money there.
Yeah. Again, they have to lobotomize these things, otherwise they go a bit spicy.
Okay, just a couple of stories to round out the episode. So we've heard a lot about childcare in the past few months, not just about the people who work there, but also the kind of funding model that they used. Now, of course, childcare centres are privately run, but they're subsidised by the federal government. So what you've got at the moment is the subsidy model. So that's where you offer a sliding scale of subsidised care for families earning up to $536,000 a year, with those on a combined income of $86,000 or less receiving the highest subsidy rate of 90%. Now, what is instead being proposed at the Centre for Policy Development is where you fund childcare centres directly and charge a flat fee. Yeah, that sounds like a simpler model. And it also sounds like a model that would stop increasing the prices all the time. When you subsidize like that, you increase the amount of demand, and that just means that childcare centres start charging their customers more. And so there's just this constant race because people say, oh, well, look, fees have gone up, you've got to subsidize it further.
Yep.
So, yeah.
So then the fees can go up so you can subsidize it further.
Yes, and it turns into this vicious cycle, and the prices just keep going up. So, yeah, a flat fee sounds like a much better model, even if that might cost more in the short term, and it might. Surely it would stop prices like spiraling out of control.
Mm.
Okay.
Well, that's the problem with government intervention when it comes to price fixing and etc. or affordability fixing, is that like there's a mechanism there that can spiral out of control because government spending is infinite. Government spending isn't all that strictly budgeted.
Yeah. Okay, so we covered the thing on the greyhounds last week. We also covered that thing on defence. Okay, so Japan has been picked to build Australia's next fleet of warships, believe it or not. So we are contracting the services of Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, and they're going to be, we're giving them $10 billion, around that much, to manufacture our warships.
Yeah.
So
I remember fucking taking that bullet train from fucking south to north and seeing all those big fucking docks and heavy industry buildings. Hitachi mostly, but yeah, Mitsubishi had a few of them. They're definitely capable of doing it. Unfortunately, more so than we are.
When it comes to manufacturing, I think that the honorary Aryans, that is the Japanese, they do stand up. They're good. I still think that the best cars in the world, and here's how I define that, the most reliable car engines in the world are built by the Japanese.
Yep. I'll
Even
have to
better.
concur. Well, because the idea of like with a German-made car is that like, you know, you're meant to have a maintenance schedule with it. Like, you know, if you do this, this, and this, if you change all the consumable parts when the manual tells you to do so, like it will last a long time. But the problem is the average consumer doesn't fucking do that. With the Japanese car, they basically built into the car that you're not going to do all that much maintenance. And that's because the Japanese and the French kind of share the same thing. They're like, overactive car maintenance is kind of gauche to them.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, if we were ever to take power, you know, I'd still have no problem importing Japanese cars because the idea that any country can implement a system of complete autarky is just a pipe dream. You know, you can have a system of protection where you have various mechanisms in place to encourage domestic manufacturing. But I mean, really, the idea of what Australia making all of its cars, all of its computers by itself, does anyone really think such a thing is
Dude,
possible?
that is literally like that'll take like a century to fix in this country.
Yeah, it's just not
Yeah,
doable.
we pulled it down in 10 years, I'd say. We tore all our manufacturing down. Maybe 20 now. I might be a bit out of touch there, but it will not take 20 years to ramp it back up again. That's for sure.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
fucked
Okay,
something
now-
here that's very hard to unfuck.
Yeah.
So our
I
last
mean,
story,
there's a lot of blame on that, but anyways.
we're being Sangroper-centric here. Our last story is from WA, and that is that our Year 12 students who get a grade of D will still be able to pass ATAR. So previously, you had to get a C, in other words, 50% or more, to actually get your certificate to officially graduate from high school. I mean, as if that wasn't already a low enough bar. But you'll be able to get it, and that would actually also make you eligible for a number of university courses as well. Now, I can't remember exactly what is a D compared to an E, but I know that if you got 40%, I'm pretty sure that's still a D, which is a really fucking lousy mark.
I don't know if we
The
grade it
idea-
the same as Americans. That's another thing.
This is just we're already going backwards. I mean, we covered that story about employers were complaining that universities are not making job-ready graduates. So there's already a problem within university about the quality of education that they're giving students. And now we're making it even easier for dumbasses to get into these courses. Why are we doing this?
Because fuck you, fuck this society, and I believe if we cargo cult people into university, that I can keep this unstable mess that has no real future going a little bit longer.
Well said.
Look, we need to go back to the days where it was like, between 5 and 10% of people went to uni, because only between 5 and 10% of people were capable of going to uni. It was just understood that way for a very, very long time. And now we live in an age where, like, just everyone should go, no matter what. And we've over-credentialized occupations like nursing, for example, where you never needed to go to university, but now you do, and you can't get your qualification if you don't.
We do live in a society that requires a higher understanding of everything. But in saying that, university doesn't need to be the way that it happens. There are plenty of ways.
Well, again, my late uncle was one of the last engineers to get his piece of calligraphy by working in a machine shop.
Oh wow.
What we should be doing is, well, what Bog does, and that's, get into a trade, start on an apprenticeship, work your way in there. Soon you'll be on over 100 grand, and you'll be disconnecting the electricity of the guy who has the master's degree in philosophy.
Yeah.
And the funny thing about that is, if I wanted to go to university, I'll be favored quite well, because I've already proven that I can do something.
You've got real world experience.
Yeah, and I've also got something to fall back on if it doesn't work out. So it's sort of the double-edged sword in that sense.
Bog, male stripping isn't a career.
Hey, I haven't told you much about that yet.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, guys, that is where we will leave it. So thank you for joining us. Make sure you tell all of your friends about the march that's coming up on the 31st of this month. If you live in any one of those major cities and you have time off, I don't think there's really any excuse for it. You better show up. So please spread the word. You can check out all of our stuff at theracer.biz, and we'll see you next time.